Is grad school worth it?
And this is coming from two people who already got their bachelor's degrees and who are currently near the end of their master's.
So is it? You said something very interesting before that I want to bring up. So you can already go ahead and...
So she was telling me the other day that in grad school you're taught to be a professional, but I think in grad school you're not taught to be a professional. You're just treated like one for no reason. And I say this because when you are in undergrad, you what was I gonna say? You're like just taught like you're kind of like an upgraded like high school student. Like I feel like you're in undergrad, you're kind of given all the freedoms you wanted in high school in terms of like flexible schedule, you know,
not having to wake up early.
Yeah, eating out all the time, you know, being with friends a lot, living with your friend, living in dorms, moving out, driving, etc. So I feel like it's like your time to like really shine in undergrad, and then you're given a degree. But then when you actually get to the graduation, I don't know if any of you have graduated yet, but you know, don't want to brag, we have. But when you're in the graduation, usually the graduates tend to have a different color robe or style of robe depending on the level. So personally at our school, which I will not name, the color of the robes were blue for undergrad, black black for masters, and then like a suede black different looking thing for PhD. So don't figure out school yet. But
I feel like it's too common around grad schools.
Hopefully. But
I recognize that wall. Sorry. Go.
But the blue was the undergrad one, and it should still feel special when you graduate, don't get me wrong, but it was like there was like 1,000+ blue ones. So it's like imagine that every semester, twice a year. How many schools are there in the US? So it's not necessarily as much of a high, whatever the word is, like honor, as you think it is. So, but when you get to the grad school or even PhD, there's a lot fewer of them, and like a lot fewer. Like I think at my undergrad graduation, the grad students that were graduating were about maybe 20, 30 max, compared to like 1,000 undergrad. So it's like more of a, like, I guess, privilege, more of a higher honor. And I think in grad school, they treat you more like a professional, obviously, is because you're at that next level, you've already passed undergrad. But when you get to grad school, you realize that undergrad isn't necessarily as hard or as prestigious as one might think, because it's actually pretty common, especially in like the US, for people to have college degrees. I've worked many jobs in my undergrad career that didn't need a degree, obviously, because I didn't have one yet. And there was multiple people working there who did already have bachelor's degrees. And it's like, no hate to them, they can do whatever they want. But like, it's not, just because you have a bachelor's degree nowadays too, doesn't mean you're guaranteed a job. Even a master's, you're technically not guaranteed, but you have a much higher chance. So I feel like with masters, since not many people are willing to do it, they're more willing to treat you more like a professional, because obviously the better they treat you, the more you'll stay, etc. And you're more higher valued than somebody, because it's like when you see somebody with a doctor, what is it called?
Like, PhD, a doctor.
Well, like what's that called? Like Mr. Doctor, suffix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You're more likely to treat them better. Like when you see your doctor or something, when you go for a checkup or dentist, you think they're like the smartest person just because of that.
Do you feel like that grad school gives you content that makes you professional though? Or do you think it's just explicitly they treat you that way? Do you think that grad school provides enough content that makes you that professional?
Personally, for me, I'm getting my MBA, don't worry about it. M, not N. And not in the league, unfortunately.
I was like, what does that mean?
About 2 feet
Sorry,
too
I'm
short.
Slow.
What was the question?
Do you think that like they actually prepare you though to be a professional in grad school? Like, do you think they just treat you that way, or do you think that there's content added that also makes you a professional?
Yes and no. I
think we've talked about it before. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes and no, because I feel like they give you. There's like a lot of opportunities they could possibly provide you with, just depending on the connections with the school. But at the same time, too, in grad school as well, a lot of people don't have time to be chasing every single last opportunity. Like they're working full time, classes, families, etc. So that's one thing too. And plus, I feel like from at least my experience, a lot of people who are in grad school, they are already like somewhat established in their careers, and they're really just doing it for like a pay raise or something, or their job's paying for it, so they might as well. So I feel like a lot of people who are in grad school, at least, I feel like they already are professional, not because they're in grad school, but because of their job experience or real life experience. But at the same time, too, I feel like grad school subjects you're learning are more concentrated. They're more like they're more specified on what you're learning. I feel like in undergrad is very broad, so I feel like you get to learn more specific stuff. But I feel like too, when you do go into grad school, you kind of have like a mindset change because it's the next level of college, and you've already surpassed the previous level. So I feel like they don't train you to be professional. I feel like you kind of already come in as one, and if you don't, you have to yourself be on that mindset, because you can't act like you can. Whenever you go to college, like I think you were telling me too the other day, you can almost tell if somebody's like either PhD, like a PhD student, master's student, undergrad, just by the way they act or carry themselves. Like, I know me and you personally were very different.
Yeah.
In undergrad versus now.
Yeah, I think I might steal some of your water. You gonna grab it?
Sure.
Thanks.
You can keep talking.
Can I? I'm just kidding. So I do think I've changed a lot ever since undergrad. We come from very different backgrounds though. You're getting your MBA, and my background's in a completely different field. And I'm actually attending a R1 university, which means they're at the top for research. So I think my college experience also was very different. For undergrad though, I'm a first generation college student. So I acknowledge that college is really, really difficult. Like even undergrad, it's like, if anybody can finish it, kudos to you, because it's super difficult. And if you plan to continue your education, it's definitely a completely different roller coaster. I think with undergrad, they're very broad. I don't think I've learned a lot in my undergrad. Some people are different. But for me personally, I think with undergrad, I learned a few key aspects, but that's also because I was in your undergrad, your major's they address your major in a very broad way, so it adheres to more of the students, if that makes sense. So like if I'm in kines, which is kinesiology, it's the study of the body movement. If I'm in kines, that is such a large umbrella. You can be in occupational therapy. You can be a physical trainer. You can depending on your university, have some element of sport management. So it's so diverse, it's so different that I feel like I didn't connect enough with a lot of the material, because we have to go through anatomy, we have to go through like physical therapies in that too, and that's where a lot of the people were going. They were in PT, and I feel like mine was so specific with like development and with the youth and stuff. It was just really difficult to find that material that I kind of clung to, or that adhered to my interest. And I think that's also kind of why I wanted to push a little bit further and continue my education, because undergrad was so broad that I feel like I got nothing out of it almost.
Yeah, I feel like undergrad you get like more experience, more like not experience, but like experience and like growth behind the scenes rather than in class. Yeah, so all my experience in undergrad was stuff that my mentor had kind of put me on.
shout out to my mentor, I can't put his name, but yeah, so I feel like all of my experiences, research-wise as well, was always an opportunity given to me by another individual, but never really my department.
Yeah, I feel the same way because I didn't have any, like, somebody who was labeled my mentor. However, I did have, as you remember, I worked a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would skip class to work.
Islam worked way too much.
You said my real name.
Cut it.
We're gonna bleep that out.
Oh, fuck. Sorry.
As soon as I learn how to bleep that out. Her real name is, no, I'm kidding.
He worked all the time. Way too much, actually. Yeah, you can continue, but I feel like a lot of your life, you're in business. So like I feel like your experiences add up differently than mine did. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so I feel like with mine, I didn't have a specific mentor, but I did have one, or like a couple different like co-workers and one manager specifically, who I will also not mention, but their names. But they like in a way I kind of kind of looked up to them and like kind of took a lot of their advice, because I feel like with me and you, another common thing we have is maybe like a lot of the things we do, it's quote unquote ahead of our typical age group. Yeah. So a lot of people that we would talk to would be older, and so they're more experienced and they're years ahead of life than we are. So when I talk to them, you try to get like advice or like just to see what's next. So when I would talk to them and like tell them about my experience or just to get life advice, it was like 3 people I can remember specifically. And then they would tell me about like their college journeys or how they got to their career where they're at now and stuff like that. And you know, it was good because you get a lot of good advice from them, and it also gives you a chance to network and build a connection, because you never know when you may need them in the future or if they may need you, because networking is a 2-way street. But what was your question again? Was it a question?
I don't think so.
Oh, you said the mentor thing. No, you said the experience. Oh yeah, I was just talking about mentor. I guess you didn't ask a question. I'm tripping with the kid thing. But yeah, so I think having a mentor is definitely valuable. Oh no, it was the college thing.
Are we still talking about content based?
You didn't grow in undergrad. You thought it was useless. You said. Somewhat.
Somewhat. Don't quote that.
Yeah,
it wasn't useless. It was just way too broad.
I think the classes were useless.
Some of them, a lot of them actually. It's just, I think the things were just way too broad, where I didn't have any type of connection to my major, because my thing was so specific.
Yeah.
And I guess my university wasn't on board with what I was interested in. So a lot of the stuff adhered to all the PTs in the class, all the OTs. So I just did a lot of work that honestly went through like one ear and out the other.
People would like to know what's a PT and OT. I know what it means.
Physical therapist, occupational therapist.
There you go. I knew that.
Yeah.
But I think too, the classes that you least expect will help you are the ones that actually help you. But like for life, not like for learning.
What are the optional courses called again?
I swear we went to college. What are they called? Electives.
Electives. Yeah. There's those and the prereqs.
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like my electives push me a good amount, because then I get to choose it. So I'm probably choosing something that's more towards what I want to do in the future. So
I would say the same.
Yeah, I think with all the classes that I was required to take, I didn't take a lot out of it. But that's just, it could be my major and what I was interested in at the time. But the only thing I remember is like what you should do to lose weight, and like random facts, just random shit.
I remember I took that one acting class that I told you about accidentally. So what happened was I went to a different university my first 2 years of what is it called?
He's been to three colleges for his undergrad.
So I went to community college for a semester. I went to one college out of my city or university, excuse me, out of my city for a year and a half, and then I went the remainder to the same school we went to, which I will not name. And then, so
I convinced him to come to that school.
Yeah, and there was also a unfortunate incident at the school too. I will not say.
A really scary incident happened at his previous university.
And my school, I had this advisor, and you people all know how advisors they know how to do everything but their job. And if any of my advisors hear this, there's only one that actually know how to do their job. And you know who you are. My current one.
They all think they know what they're doing.
If my current one is seeing this, you don't know what you're doing at all. But and I hate you. But I was supposed to take some type of theater class, and there was an acting class available because I was a transfer student at the time, and transfer students have the last pick for classes. Mm-hmm. So I said, oh hey, there's this acting class open. Would this cover my theater requirement? She says yes. But apparently you actually have to take a class that actually teaches you about theater. Go figure. But so I take this acting class, and even though this acting class was I thought it was going to be an easy A, and it just wasn't. I got an A, but it wasn't easy. But you actually had to act, believe it or not. And then at the time I was so I went through multiple phases of my life where I was super shy. So in high school, I was really shy and I didn't break out of it until senior year. But when you go to college, especially one where you don't know that many people, you kind of just go back into it where I just kind of was more reserved. So it's imagine being shy, not knowing anybody, and having to act in front of people. It's and then your grade is based on that. We had 2 in-class performances, and I would just the teacher would always criticize me how I would not do so well in the class, and it wasn't because I wasn't trying or anything. I was just super shy. I couldn't open up and act in front of people because I have a really good memory, and I was able to memorize all my lines. So when she asked me to to put the script away and say my lines, I told her I already had them memorized. I just needed the lines on me because I was nervous. And then she's and she thought I was lying, so I put it away and I started saying my lines, and her eyes opened up because I actually knew my lines.
His memory is phenomenal. I think you have the best memory of anybody I've ever met.
Don't want to brag.
Yeah, you have amazing memory.
She's boosting me up now. She acted like she didn't insult me 2 hours ago, but it is what it is. But so what was I saying? The memory's not kicking in now. Hold on. So yeah, memorizing my lines. So I said them, and then the day of our first in-class performance, which was our midterm, I was just listen, F it. I'm just gonna act. It's either I fail or I just get over it, and if people laugh or whatever, it is what it is. And because if I fail, I'm just gonna have to go through the whole thing again. And so I just acted. The teacher was phenomenally surprised, and it was kind of fun and stuff. So it was a nice experience, and then I finally broke out of my shell in the class and was able to act more better, and then, or whatever, how you say it correctly. And then we had the last performance, and the teacher was I was the most improved actor out of all of them, and she was what's funny is at the end of the second one, she was it's not you won a Grammy or anything. I was relax, I would have won one if it was offered, but I was the most improved actor, and I improved a lot. And so moral of the story is that experience made me break out of my shell, and it taught me a new, possibly hidden talent that I didn't know about myself. Hint, hint, wink, wink. And then so it caused me to grow a lot, and maybe put in the back of my mind that I could possibly use it again. So fun fact about both of us too, I have my own TikTok and YouTube channel where I do skits, and then I never thought shameless plug.
Shameless plug
but,
right here.
The same username as my name. But I never thought I was using the acting stuff again, but it was always in the back of my mind, it's kind of fun and I always want to do it again, so I started to do it again. And then she has hidden musical talent abilities, and she also lost the talent show in middle school because she was singing with somebody else. That ruined the performance. It wasn't her. But will not name. You know you are. But that girl also went to college.
Oh my
Fun
god.
fact.
She's actually very successful.
Not at singing. But I'm kidding. Kind of. Actually, if I wasn't kidding, you would have won. But yeah, so I feel like we have a lot of hidden talents that we either recognized in college or that came up when in undergrad because of electives or stuff that we took that caused us to learn, you know, more about ourselves. Because I feel like going to college, it teaches you a lot about yourself and your talents and your interests. Like,
the only thing that ever taught me about grad school is I signed up for an opportunity to be a scholar of a very prestigious group. And they get a lot of resources that kind of assist you, specifically as first generation college students, to move forward with little to no maybe like problems, I would say, or less confusion than you would originally. And with that program, I had to take certain classes for it, and they were elective courses. And honestly, if I wouldn't have taken that class, I wouldn't have been able to move to continue my education. With the application and the stuff that they taught me, they taught us so many skills. We were able to create like a curricular vitae, which is a CV or a resume, but specifically in academia. So I was able to create those.
Right.
I just have to remind you every time what a CV is.
Still don't know what it means.
He's business, so it doesn't apply to him. But yeah, so they taught me how to create these documents that I need for my application. And with that application, I got in all the universities that I've actually applied for and all the programs. So that is something in my undergrad that I highly appreciate, is just being a part of those honor societies. As well as
still recording, but I'm listening.
Okay. As well as just I have storage.
I don't.
As well as just I think undergrad has given me more opportunities, in my opinion, than grad school, but I think that's solely because of my mentor. And also because undergrad's a 4-year degree.
Yeah.
If you get your master's, it's only 2 years. So then again, it's also limiting as much as you can do. And like you said earlier, I think grad school is full of working. You're working all the time, and you have more responsibilities in grad school.
Because I feel like they realize that there's not as much need for hand holding maybe in grad school. 100%. So I feel like that's part of the reason. Yeah,
and I think that's what makes it so difficult.
Yeah.
It's like me, I'm a first gen college student. So first generation.
I'm not.
And that's okay. But coming from mine is my mentor in undergrad was also a first generation college student. And a person of color. And I just feel like he helped me in so many ways. Why are you smiling at me?
Nothing.
I would just say the whole reason why I'm in grad school is because of him. And my parents, I had to do my FAFSA. You do your FAFSA.
Yeah, I do.
So it's
I actually did it this morning.
Well, that's good. But it's just those things, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have any help. I don't have any assistance in any of this. So everything's so new to me. And
You're that, guys. I'm no help.
No help. Business major.
College is a business, so.
College is business. College is business. I forgot what we were talking about.
First gen.
Yeah.
He was your mentor or something, was the reason you went to grad school. FAFSA, you get no help, apparently.
I don't. I stopped filling it out, actually.
Like financial help, are you talking about in general, or just help with college in general?
Help with college. Like, my mom looked at it and she was like, I don't know how to do this.
Oh, like
I have to do everything myself.
Like, are you talking about applying or in general, like classes and stuff?
You're talking about for
Like
college?
help. Like, what do you mean help?
Yeah, college.
Like anything in college.
Anything.
So I didn't help you at all. Nothing.
This is not about you.
It's our podcast. What do you mean? Who is it about?
I just wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be in grad school.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I feel like now I don't even. Well, now FAFSA, they don't give you grants really in, what is it called? Masters.
Mm-hmm.
But they did in undergrad. And then, but I can relate to you somewhat. And sorry, there was people walking by. It's kind of awkward the first time. But filming in public.
Ever.
Ever.
Yeah.
At college. But like in college in general, like I had to figure out most of the stuff myself. Like I'm not first gen, but my parents went to college in like foreign countries. And
Africa.
yeah. We're both African, by the way, fun fact. But the
different parts.
Yeah.
Oh,
very close.
He's a little bit under my country.
Yeah, exactly. But
like geographically, he's under.
Yeah, geographically.
Yeah, he's not inferior to me in any way.
But they didn't like. I had to apply myself. I had to figure out which college I was going to myself. I switched my major like 2-3 times.
Oh, same, myself. Yeah.
And then you have like no guidance really, especially like I'm the oldest brother, so I have 2 other brothers. So my other brother's in college now, and I have to help him do like the whole understanding college thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't really have anybody helping me. I had one friend who was kind of experienced. He was older than me, that helped me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I had to figure it out all myself. Especially like switching to like having to go to three different schools. It's like figuring it out 3 different times. So it's like it was rough when you first get in, because it's like you just learn about everything so fast. It's like I can understand what you're saying about the lack of help, because it is a struggle to find the proper help in for college, like to fully understand what you're talking about. And it's like I get it.
And grad school at that, in my opinion, is harder to figure out. Well, I'll just put some context in it. So grad school for you might be very straightforward. You know, you live here, you go to the same university that you graduated your undergrad from. So I feel like it's a little bit more straightforward. I traveled it's a lot of firsts for me, actually. So grad school, I traveled out of state, and now I live out of state for 2 years. And I've always loved my home state.
We told her not to move, guys, but
I had to. There was a lot of stuff going on in my life that made me also dip as quickly as possible. But
excuses.
So now I'm out of state. I'm at another university. I am thankful, I think, that I'm doing a master's. I got accepted to both programs, PhD and master's, and I was assuming that I would just go all the way, right? But I think you don't know until you get there, and then you realize maybe this space isn't for me. This university, my values, they're all very different. So just channeling back to our original question was, is grad school worth it? And we talked about, you talked about preparing as you or
professional.
Yeah, but like not preparing you to be a professional, but
they treat you like
a professional. Yeah. So I think it's so interesting. It's a little bit of both with my university. So obviously I think I'm learning a lot. But I'm learning a lot through things that I'm doing, never through any of the classes that I took. Honestly, I don't remember anything from any of the classes that I've taken over the past year. But I do remember, because we have a lot of other responsibilities now, the things I do remember are things that happened within the opportunities that I took. So it's the same deal with undergrad. But I will say, the way I act, and we talked about that and you mentioned it earlier, but the way I act around others really is a difference. There's a change.
Mm-hmm.
The way I interact with others, the way I respond to emails, the way I write papers. Is Izlammo was I'm gonna use a bad word, but he was shitting on my paper earlier. I'm writing my thesis so I can, get out. But I was making comments on my own work while I was working. And he thought that was so strange. And that's because I'm super critical now. Not like I'm super critical about my writing.
I was supporting.
Yeah, no, he's been great at supporting me throughout this whole process. But I'm writing this paper and I'm finding things that I wouldn't have found in my undergrad. And it seems so second nature now.
Yeah.
It's like I see where I have developed as a professional because they treated me as a professional. And although it was really freaking hard because I went from undergrad from like more of a liberal school to this R1 university that's like kind of hardcore, I would say, when it comes to output. So they're looking at results. That's what they want to see is results, results, results. They even put their like staff on that type of like timeline. Yeah, so they're pushing results out even for their staff. So it's like this university is consistently putting results out. And that pressure you don't get from my undergrad university. You don't get that pressure. So the pressure that I have in grad school right now, I think it's very different, but it was hard for me to adjust to, I would say. And then them treating me like a professional, they put me out there. Like they put me to, well, I would say I'm co-advised, but my mentor was really grateful when he kind of like wanted me to come in and get comfortable a little bit before they kind of put the responsibilities out. But I will say when they came out hard. Like I feel like I was treated like one, which is really hard for me when I'm coming from a very liberal, open space to something so straightforward. So they definitely treated me like one, and I was put into responsibilities that taught me how to be one. I think that's a great way to say it.
Yeah, I would agree with what you said because it's your experience.
Yeah, but they put me, there was the opportunities that they gave me, some of them forced opportunities, but once you take them, yes, it's a higher workload, but I think that's where you actually learn how to be a professional because the values that they put on you while you're doing those things makes you reflect more, which makes you learn. Yes. But I don't think the classes did a lot for me. But that's also because I'm not applied as much as others are. So like, I'm not a nurse. Obviously, grad school would be very helpful for nurses. They learn shit that they need to do every day. Even business, I feel like maybe even you'll learn stuff that some people would be using in their day-to-day jobs.
Yeah, and I feel like the biggest part, at least for my school that I go to for masters, is that they focus more on, the heaviest thing is really just group work, because I feel like it's just trying to train you in business. Obviously, you're going to be working with a lot of different people from different backgrounds, cultures, countries, etc. So I feel like the reason they have you do so much group work, which I'm not the biggest fan of, is because they want you to be able to interact with as many different types of people as possible, which is a good thing. But sometimes, when you work in groups, there's always most of the time, unfair distribution of work, and not being able to be in contact with people. But don't get me wrong, like you have your couple good groups in your college career. I definitely think, from at least my experience, the bad ones do outweigh the good ones. But for the most part, it teaches you how to talk with people more and maybe build a few extra connections that you maybe wouldn't have been able to if you didn't have these group projects. Because typically, I'm an online student, she's in person. So typically online, you're not going to go out and message people from your class unless you have to for like a group project, because it's kind of strange to just message people that you've never met in person before. So sliding their Canvas DMs, but
That's really funny.
So it's like that's one thing too, and especially like with business, it's obviously I think a large part of business is the networking aspect.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the reason. But like mine's, there's not really that many papers. It's more so like discussion posts, a little bit of like types of work that has a lot of math in it, like the finance classes, and then or accounting, and like what was I gonna say? The group work. So I have had maybe like a couple papers, but those tend to be the group projects where you're like an innovation class or analyzing something or presenting some type of thing that could benefit a business and stuff like that. So overall, I feel like it's grad school, I would say, is a pretty good experience. I do not regret going. I feel like if I were to give people advice, if they should go or not, I would say go, because it's only 2 years, and I feel like it's something you could definitely, I feel like with grad school, it's definitely more manageable to do while having like a whole like life and work,
Yeah.
rather than undergrad, because in undergrad I was working a lot and stuff, so it's really hard to like have your life in order in undergrad, because I feel like you have to give a lot more of your time in undergrad. I feel like you do have to give a lot more energy at once in masters than you did in undergrad, but I feel like in undergrad it's definitely a lot, time is more on your side because you have a lot more time to spare rather than in undergrad. And there's not, at least for mine, there's not as many tests or exams, which is a good thing because I'm not a good test taker, so it's not as test oriented, and it's only 2 years. You can get it done pretty quickly. You can get a pretty like prestigious degree, because I feel like bachelor's degrees are becoming less, I guess in a way, like less valuable, because it's not, the rarity factor is not like as high as it used to be anymore.
Right.
So I feel like that's my opinion. I do feel like, as we said at the beginning, graduate school is worth it, because like I said again for the 5th time, it's only 2 years. It's a pretty good experience. You get to meet more professionals than you would in undergrad, more people who could actually serve like as some use to you in terms of like connections, networking, job opportunities, stuff like that. You get to talk to, usually like, I would say we're the younger crowd of our master's department or whatever. So it's like you're typically going to be the one netting all the benefits rather than the older crowd, because they're pretty much more established. They don't really, there's not really much more you can do for them. They're really just there for the degree, which we all are. But would you say graduate school is worth it?
I would. I would say my group work, like you were explaining your group work earlier, mine looks different. We publish manuscripts. And when we publish manuscripts, it's kind of like a group work situation where you have to work with others and try to get something done. There's no grade at the end, but if you get something published, you're providing more knowledge to the world, which is very exciting and reputable. Grad school's worth it. I say that with such hesitation, right? I think it's because I'm taking a thesis route, and thesis route's very different from classes. I think it's, I don't regret my decision.
What she's saying is don't do a thesis.
That's what I'm saying. If you're not planning on doing a PhD or going further, don't do a thesis. That's what I'm saying. Grad school itself, though, I think it's very worth it.
Yes.
I wish I could provide better.
It is worth it.
Support on my feeling when I say it, because I feel like I'm saying it with such hesitation. But I think it's only because I'm struggling right now with my thesis, and it's bothering me mentally.
I feel like it's like that thing they say in high school, like the senioritis.
Yeah.
Where it's like you just feel lazy because
we just want to
near
be done.
the end. Like she's about to graduate in about what, a month? A little over a month, basically. Month and a half.
Like a
and
month
then
and a half.
Have
Hopefully.
one more semester after this, so I'll graduate at the end of this year.
Yeah.
So it's like we're near the end, so it's like
I'm hitting my brick wall.
Yeah, it's like we just want to be done, but there's like a lot more work that needs to be done before we're done. So just most of the time, I feel like in college, they're usually the first part of the semester is pretty lax, and then it's really that middle to end.
I had a fantastic time my first year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I had an amazing time in grad school. I met a lot of professionals. I learned a lot about my research interests. I learned a lot about I learned to be creative again, because I feel like you lose creativity in undergrad. I feel like I learned how to be creative again by working with others that have different disciplines. So a lot of my work now is interdisciplinary, which is really dope. I did it in undergrad, but when I went to my new university, they didn't have a specific sector.
Sector?
Yeah, big words. So, for example, I did some work in peace and conflict studies, and going to my new university, they don't have peace and conflict studies department, so I kind of had to use my resources, and I learned a lot. The resources that my new university has, my old one didn't. So I was able to provide work and knowledge to the world that I wouldn't be able to do here. And I think that's great. And I was also able to provide quantitative values to something that doesn't have any support in that way. Just because I'm a part of a lab that's very results, numbers, and then I'm a part of another lab that's very qualitative. So being able to kind of be in the middle of both of those, I'm one of my advisor's first master's student, and I feel like he did an amazing job. And I feel like I learned so much during grad school and during my grad school experience, and I've done so much. If you look back, you don't feel like, personally, I have this complex within myself where I feel like I'm never doing enough, even though I have so many things on my plate. And when I look back at my CV, I can see everything I've done and everything I've accomplished in that short period of time. And I feel like that is something that I would never take back or regret. I've done a lot in 2 years, and I feel like I've
done a good amount.
Yeah, he's done a lot.
Not as much.
My experiences were very different in undergrad. I kind of had more extraordinary experiences in undergrad, going overseas and doing work there. But I feel like with grad school, because it is limited on time, you kind of sacrifice those experiences. You're like, well, I don't think I would have the time to do those things and graduate. Because undergrad is 4 years, so you have a lot of flexibility. But when it comes to grad school, it's pretty much like you want to get out in 2 years. You don't want to waste no time. So you definitely stay in the States and do stuff, but you do a lot. Hopefully you do a lot. But there's also things that you don't want to do that you're signed up to do.
Yeah.
That's the downside. I think it's there's pros and cons, but I think there's definitely more pros than cons.
Slightly.
To grad school.
Slightly.
Huh?
Slightly more pros.
I don't regret it. I think I'm a far more educated woman than I was when I graduated from my undergrad. Izlammo looks at my old photos and is thrown off at how young I looked in them, and I was graduating undergrad.
Yeah, I think when you're older and you look at photos from the past, you're just like, oh my god, I look so young. But at the time, it's like, you don't look that young. But maybe it's just because we're smarter now. It's probably,
maybe smart.
Probably what it is. Someone smarter. I
Smarter,
feel like
more
I'm
stress.
kind of smarter. Can't wait to graduate and be done with school
Me too.
forever.
Yeah.
But I think, unless you have anything else to say.
I don't.
Okay, we're wrapping up. That's it. That's all we had to say. Moral of the story, go to graduate school. It's worth it. Don't do a thesis.
Unless you have a better job lined up where you can make good money, in my opinion, then don't go to grad school.
Yeah. If you don't need it.
If you don't need it, don't do it.
Random major. Like if you're a construction management major, don't do graduate school. Don't do graduate school. You don't need it. Or if you're engineering and computer science, I feel like you don't need it. Because those computer science majors, they already make a ton. getting out. So it's like, why waste the time getting an even higher? Because I think getting a bachelor's degree for like computer science people, that's pretty high already. Because it's like a lot of them, have only the certificate, like a certificate or something. So it's like,
my friend's getting a PhD in computer science.
Yeah, don't be like her, guys. But it's a waste of time. But be like me.
I would say if you have an opportunity lined up for you where you feel comfortable, the pay is good, and you're like, this is what I want to do it. If the opportunity is already open and you already want to do it, I think you should go for it, work yourself up, whatever. But if there's a requirement where you need a higher degree to work yourself up, and that's where you want to be, then work yourself up.
Yes.
Because grad school is worth it.
For now. All right.
For now. Talk to us in a few months when we graduate. We might change our mind.
Okay.
Hopefully not.
Thank you for listening. Follow and subscribe on all the platforms. And hopefully maybe next time we may have like
a guest.
Equipment.
Oh.
a guest. Equipment. Better background.
A TV.
Etc. But that's it. Goodbye.
That's it. Bye.